30% of devs say they've used ephemeral environments, and most of those who haven't thinks it sounds pretty cool. Bit sus on this one, hey Luke?
30%?
Yeah, it's a bit of
bullshit.
Hey everyone, this is Piers Sinclair from SSW TV, and I'm here with Luke Cook, and we've just done a series of Chewing the Fats on testing, and he's going to take us through the results. So take it away, Luke.
Thanks, Piers. Yes, testing, everyone's loved it. We've been doing it for the last couple of months. It's been quite a long series. So just to recap everyone on what the very first one was, testing one, it was the different types of testing, right? So this was kind of like a 50,000 foot flyover of all of the sort of different types of testing that are used in software development, all the buzzwords that we needed to use, and also sort of how those tests are structured using the testing pyramid.
Well, the first important thing is that 50% of the devs had never heard of the testing pyramid before this series. The next point is that most devs are great at unit and integration tests, but less so with the higher end of the pyramid. So that's contract testing, regression testing, and end-to-end testing. So Hugo, he said, I have often encountered clients who explicitly requested not to write any tests because they didn't want the devs to spend time on them and wanted the devs to focus on the features.
Yep, I think that a lot of people have probably run into something like that before, where maybe, you know, the product owner or the stakeholders just don't see any value in writing tests. They're just like, well, write it correctly the first time, you know, and you won't need the tests.
So Mehmet, he said, one line of code feels like 15 lines of tests.
Yeah, it can. Let's be real, it can. Absolutely. So budget your time accordingly. So then we moved on, we had a bit of a break, and then we moved on to testing number 3, which was automating tests. As we saw from Lee's rule, there are certain tests that do lend themselves to automation, and then there are some that you just shouldn't automate at all, or could be very, very difficult to automate.
Yeah, we learned that XUnit and NUnit, they take the cake for the most common testing frameworks for backend with similar levels of people. Mock was also used extensively, which is another tool. And we saw that respawn and test containers are actually seeing use on a couple of client projects, which is awesome to see because they're up and coming technologies. And then Anton said manual testing is more valuable when requiring subjective judgment. So for example, does it look nice?
Yeah, in fact, that was a common theme across a lot of the comments. You're on the money, guys. You know, UI UX testing, very difficult to automate because it requires a human to make sure that the user experience is good, it's acceptable, right? You can't really get a machine to do that, or at least not as well as you can a human. Testing number 5, do you get a human to test? Most of those sorts of day-to-day tests, I guess from a developer's perspective, are for a pull request, but we kind of wanted to figure out what people were doing beyond that. Like what other sort of tests and checks are they doing? Because it's quite difficult to try and compile an application in your head and follow through all of the different branching strategies, right? So,
well, the first thing we learned is that 50% of devs say their most common testing method is reviewing PRs. 25% of devs say they run the branch locally, and 25% of devs say they do an over-the-shoulder check.
But look, nothing beats actually running the software, using the software yourself. Even if it's just walking over to that dev's machine and kicking them off their computer and going, all right, give me the keyboard and mouse. What did you just build? Let me play with it.
For sure, and I think that one of the core points is that the person developing the feature, they have implicit biases, and if you get a second set of eyes, they're going to come at it from a fresh perspective. They don't have all the biases from when they've been developing the code, and they're going to attack it from a new angle.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So the next point was that 30% of devs say they've used ephemeral environments, and most of those who haven't thinks it sounds pretty cool. Bit sus on this one, hey Luke?
30%?
Yeah, it's a bit of
bullshit. Right? No way has anyone used, like 30% of devs used ephemeral environments. Y'all are lying. All right, one of the really big hard-hitting questions we asked for this last series was, all right, what sort of questions do you ask yourself when you're trying to decide whether you should be writing a test for this bit of code that you're working on or not, all right? And what are some of those responses that we got?
Well, the first one was from Brady, the bug-free developer, Stroud, and he said the quality of the developers, so shots fired there.
Thanks, Brady. Love it.
I know who to blame for my next PBI.
Yeah, that's right. We'll put Brady on your project. You'll never have to write a single test, I think is what he's trying to say.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay.
Then we have Wixie. He said, I'd want to get an actual test manager to estimate on these things. I know that the ideal dev tester ratio is 1:1, So I'd expect that this would apply to estimates as well. And following on from that, Daniel Mackay, he said that the size of the team should be 1 to 5. So there's clearly a difference in expectations there. Clearly SSW is not aligned on this point.
No.
Maybe we should have a discussion.
Yeah, like, what else did we hear?
Well, we heard that Stephen said risk was a big factor. Potential risk that can cause severe consequences in case of failure, such as launching a rocket.
Absolutely. Like, risk is the number one key, right? Like, that word shows up in all of our testing rules. You know, Lee has a PhD in this. He always preaches to us, you should be looking at testing in terms of risk. That's the lens that we're looking through. All right, so to wrap up, look, a lot of the comments and a lot of the perspectives on this is that testing is considered, like, you know, one of the low-hanging fruits. If budget or resources become a problem, testing is often the first thing on the chopping block, right? Like, oh yeah, we don't need the test, get rid of them, you know, we just want the features out, something like that.
Dangerous mentality, that one.
It is, right? Like, if you're building something that is going to potentially kill somebody, right? And you're got a budget constraint, you're not going to be skimping on testing, right? You're going to be skimping on something else instead.
That's for sure.
Yeah, again, you've got to see everything through the lens of risk. If the risk is high, find something else of low value to cut. I don't know, like designers, right?
I'm sure they'd love to hear that.
Anyway,
Maybe you could cut devs.
Yeah, maybe. Look, that wraps up our testing series, guys. Let us know what you think. If you learned anything, you know, if there's anything that you will change in your day-to-day as a result of this. Also, let us know what you thought of, you know, having a stand-in for Adam Kogan on this digesting the fat. He's a busy man today, so we couldn't get him. But, you know, look, we'll see what everyone thinks of it. This has been Luke and Piers from SSW, and we'll see you next time.